my talk is going to be about geographic computable data, but along the way I'd like to tell a little story. Now, one of the things I've been doing here when I'm not madly trying to get ready for this talk is kind of take the temperature of the gathering here. We're all scientists, computable knowledge engineers, and there are great opportunities and challenges. And so, just speaking for myself personally and maybe a few people that I've talked to, there's a certain amount of frustration, some disappointment, some people starting businesses, struggling with that. And so, like in any good story, there's a less than ideal starting situation. And, in a story, there's going to be some action in the middle, which is going to be about making computable knowledge get to an ending where we have scientists, engineers, business people in a world collaborating, participating, working in enterprises, working in startups, working in new businesses, and they're really exciting, interesting things. Not that it isn't already exciting and interesting, but it's even more exciting and more interesting what's going on in the world of computable knowledge. So let me get my first slide up here. One thing I want to note is if at any point there's a question or somebody would like to ask me about something, that's what I'd really like to do, is talk, engage people in this audience. And so everything I'm going to say, the whole story and everything's laid out in here, all the information, everything is, I'm quite proud of this notebook I've assembled. So, if I don't get to everything I wanted to say, it's all in notebook. And that is, by the way, on the Crowdfind. I think there's a version 10 and a version 9. This is actually the version 9 notebook that I have here. So if you want to follow along, you should download the version 9 notebook. That's the good version. Okay. So, kind of set things up to give a little history. This is stuff that many of you are going to be familiar with, but it's kind of important to set up, what the things I want to talk about that can advance computable knowledge. Now, about 5 years back, or well, a little more now, I was involved in the Wolfram Summer School, as a student, and it was a lot of fun. And it really got me looking at interested in kind of the history of NKS and how it relates to Mathematica. And this whole story of how Stephen Wolfram discovered Rule 30. There's supposed to be on this slide actually a picture of Rule 30 here, but I neglected to put it in. But anyway, Rule 30, probably most of you have heard of a million times. It was this discovery that a very simple 1-byte program can create randomness. And the conjecture is that, in fact, it actually is a universal program, though nobody's proven that yet. Of course, the whole point of the NKS book is to show, the Rule 110 is universal. But anyway, at that, this is now 3 decades ago, and Stephen Wolfram, who I got to know a little bit at the summer school and got to know his story, is really a hero of mine in, how he took this Rule 30 discovery and he could have kind of worked it into his academic thing there and written a few papers about it, but he went out, he started Wolfram Research to do NKS, to figure out what the heck is going on with Rule 30. And that then led to Wolfram Alpha. and computable knowledge and, all these exciting opportunities and challenges and this whole potential for the story of how we're going to make computable knowledge really be this amazing thing in the world. Now, let's see here. Okay, there's one more point that's important here. Throughout the story, Stephen Wolfram, he was an entrepreneur, right? He started a business. And so entrepreneurship has played an important role in the development of Mathematica and Wolfram Alpha. Now you have things like, for instance, Wolfram Alpha has the Wolfram Alpha Pro version, and there's, for a few dollars you can get the Pro, and then you can have a customized computable knowledge experience. Kind of on the enterprise end, then you have enterprise CDF for whatever, 4 figures or something. You can make computer CDF files and and if you have some kind of business niche where you can generate, something a little higher 4 figures of revenue, there's a business there. Now, okay, so that kind of sets up the background for this story. So my first idea is this. What can we do to make, wait a minute, before I get to this first idea, I have a little question here. I've been busily preparing for this talk, and I haven't been able to be to many talks, but I just want to collect some data. Has anybody been to a talk, just kind of thing in general, where slides have been presented with somebody walking around and having like a clicker to click through the slides? Has anybody done that? So, anyway, anybody seen? Yeah, no, just in the last 2 days. Okay, so, maybe this is an important point. I'd like to see next year when I come that more people are using clickers, or at least the possibility of using clickers. It isn't quite set up to do that, because I think it can improve the power of presentations. Okay, well, anyway, this slide, I'm not going to go into many details, but I have just looked at a number of different models here, and this is the kind of thing you can take home and look at if you're interested, pursue it more, of business accelerators. Let's see, I got to roll down the slide a little bit here. And then, in university settings, they tend to be called business incubators. And then in large business, they tend to be called enterprise innovation. But anyway, this is, let's see, let me go on management. Let's see here. And just before, I had one other point on this last slide. So anyway, if somebody, if there's an idea as I go along, and I'm going to get right now here to the geographic data part of my talk, but I'm really interested in talking to people about ideas about accelerating the adoption of computable knowledge and how startups might be involved in that. So if this is something that interests you, definitely catch me or email me or whatever, and I'd like to talk more about it. Now, okay, let's see here. Now we get to, enable dynamic. Interesting, okay. So here is a slide which will illustrate some of the possibility, and it also get to address the issue of how external businesses and Wolfram Research might collaborate more on generating computable knowledge and accelerating its adoption out in the world. So what this shows here is kind of a cartoon for this fleur-de-lis pattern of geographic data. In other words, something that's a 2D cartographic map combined with elevation data, okay, geodetic elevation data. And the reason why it's a cartoon is because it's was just the easiest way to create a schematic which explains some of the challenges in doing this. Now, in version 10 now, there's a way to combine, there's the so-called geodata command, which I guess I'm not sure how long it's been in version 10. I know it's now in the latest release, pre-release version 7. And this is version 9 here anyway. These 10 I had stability problems with. But anyway, geodata is kind of a 2D version of this, where when you do geodata with an option, I forget exactly what the option is called, but anyway, relief data, it will combine 3D data and mapping data. And that is, however, creating a 2D output. So presumably at some point there'll be a geodata 3D command, which will do something like this does. At least, and this is just a schematic, you know, kind of a schematic. So here, let's look at the details of what's going on here. Okay. So here what you see is how this plot is built up. On the bottom, we have the cartographic data, this map, again, the fleur-de-lis pattern. And above it, we have the elevation data. And what you'll notice at this red outline, which is the actual plot, is that the elevation data is not, the borders are not lined up with cartographic data. And this, of course, is something we're all familiar with. You know, when you put a 3D globe and you map it into 2D, you're going to get coordinate systems which don't exactly align with each other. Again, here, just to show that, this shows how the red outline is on a different, schematically shows. This is exaggerated. I mean, typical map, I mean, it's going to be small, but of course, in putting this together, it's going to be one of the beauties of this actually is that, okay, so this is not a full resolution image, but on this relatively old laptop here, you can take actually a 4 megapixel image and just as smoothly as I'm manipulating it here, you know, move it. So it's pretty amazing since the surface mapping has been added, just how high a resolution image you can combine with 3D data and get very smooth interactive performance. Okay, now, let's see, next slide here. Now, here's a little bit of a tangent from geographic data, but what I actually do is I'm working on this startup idea for lighting rooms like this, putting lightings in rooms. I'm not going to go into that, as I can see time is slipping away here very quickly, but this is another area where, okay, so here's the paradigm. There are all these cool things we can do with computable knowledge. And here's an example, a second example in lighting, the one I just showed in geographic data. Something has to happen to put functionality within Mathematica to then build on top of to get the computable knowledge which we want to actually present to the world. In other words, like there's geodata, which is just being added. You need to add this functionality into Mathematica, or, of course, if you work very hard, you can build it on top of Mathematica. But for computable knowledge, to accelerate the adoption of computable knowledge, what I would like to do is, and what I am doing, is looking for ways to get functions, and I'm not going to go into details in this lighting example here. A little bit is apparent in the slideshow if you want to look at that, and certainly I'm really happy to talk to anybody about that. But how do we get this into the world? I'm not going to say more about that now, but that's a really big interest of mine, and that's this is a little, actually, this is so cool, I should talk about this just briefly. This is in lighting. Okay, so this was a thing I did actually about a year ago, which is now on the demonstration site, and what it's showing here is a way to visualize a light source. So you've got two light sources here. There's a magenta light source and a cyan light source, and this is something you don't even think about it, and it's not really built into Mathematica, but it's an example of something it should be. So what I'm doing is I'm doing a transformation here on this sphere. So it's a sphere in the middle, and then it's prolate or oblate. So, okay, what you'll notice is that, okay, well, first I explain with these arrows. These arrows are showing the point of normal incidence of the cyan and magenta light on the sphere. So, and we can see that there's the cyan, there's the magenta, the point of normal incidence. So anyway, it explains in the caption, I'm not going to say any more about it now, but it explains how these are features which should be somehow, which would be really cool for, you know, the kind of interesting lighting things I want to do to incorporate into Mathematica. Anyway, so details you can read more about. I got to move on here. Let's see if what I want to say. I've got to cut down here. What I am going to do here. Okay, so in the slideshow, for those of you who are interested in presenting, there's in the second slide there's discussion of these two presentation ideas, which is very interesting. But what I want to get to in the last few minutes here is just a little pitch and an idea, again, probably kind of the heart of the idea that I'm pursuing about how to accelerate the adoption of computable knowledge in the world. This guy, Dean Hires, is a guy who I've known and worked with for over 5 years. And anybody doing a presentation, this is a very good book to read. He talks about how to do three things. One is how to create a story, which is what I've tried to do here. So this is kind of my journey on presentation, creating powerful stories which engage audiences. Then the second thing is how to connect with people in the audience, because without some kind of emotional connection with people in the audience, it's, you know, information is conveyed, but it's not something that engages people and excites people. And then what's really cool about this is he breaks this down and figures out, you know, how anybody can do this. And so again, I highly recommend this, and I have hopes that some of this will start to be incorporated in this Wolfram Technology Conference, because I think it's going to play an important role in accelerating the adoption of all the cool technology things we're trying to do here. So anyway, you know, I come to the end of the story, and it's basically, again, so we have scientists, engineers, business people engaged, participating, excited, doing things that we never dreamed was possible, or hardly dared to dream was possible, putting computable knowledge out in the world. So, thank you.